have your packet out. Yesterday we finished up and now we're going to talk about moving expenses. So I am currently, we already talked about how I'm selling my house, buying a house, right? I'm currently boxing up all my stuff. Do you know how expensive boxes are? They're like $1.50 for just like the little one. Like it's like this big. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Okay. All right. Are you ready? So moving expenses vary by region and company. It's very important to sign a final agreement contract before the move begins and not rely on a company's estimate. Okay. If you have movers come in, so we moved my grandmother's stuff. We had them move three pieces of furniture. Three pieces of furniture. It cost me $600. Okay. Now there were heavy stuff, like it was a couch, it was a grandfather clock, and I remember the last thing. I think it was like a glass cabinet. So, well, okay, it was my grandmother's stuff. So, the one that, mm-hmm. In the middle of the house. Yep, and it makes really loud noises. So, rich movers charge $95 per hour for loading and unloading services, $80 per hour for packing and unpacking services, and they charge $2.50 per mile for truck rental fee. So Ivan is moving 200 miles and needs 9 hours of loading and unloading, 7 hours of packing and unpacking. What is the total cost of the move if there's also a 6.5% sales tax? Okay, so this is an expensive move, right? How far is 200 miles? Okay, so how far is here to Atlanta? Okay, so miles. How many miles is it? It's like 40. Okay. So thinking about 200 miles, how many trips would that be from here to Atlanta and back? It's 40 miles to get to Atlanta. So we would do about 4 or 5 times, right? Okay, so they're moving super far away, right? They're moving about 4 or 5 hours away. So, right? Okay, so it's $95 for unloading and loading. So that's 9 hours. So 9 times 95 plus 7 hours of packing and unpacking. Okay. Plus it's 200 miles and it's 250 per mile. Yep, go ahead. 80 per hour for packing, unpacking. Mm-hmm. No, you're fine. Okay. So when we total that up, we should get 1,915. Okay, but we're not done. We got to do sales tax. So we got to multiply by. Okay. So when I multiply by 0.065, that's going to give me $124.48. And then I'm going to add that back to the 1,915 for a grand total of $2,039.48. So just to move your crap, it is going to cost you about $2,000. All of that is how much. Yep. Now it varies from person to like company to company. So for instance, if I wanted to move those or use those movers and I wanted to use them for 3 hours, I think the like flat fee was like $600. Okay. But we had a truck that we were using, so it was a little bit cheaper. But if they are moving into a truck and then driving a very long distance, it gets to be really, really expensive. Now, if you can find 5 friends that'll help you out, that would be nice, you know? Okay. But you're going to end up spending a couple $100, if not $1,000 to move. Okay. Now remember how much we spent on the house. Remember our closing costs, our down payment, the loan. Okay. So we're paying a lot of money in order to just live somewhere and move our crap. Right. All right. Good. But that's not all. We now have property taxes. Okay. So property taxes are on houses. They're not on apartments. Okay, so hear me out on this. If an area has a very high population of apartments, normally their schools are suffering because they're not getting the proper funds. Okay, think about our area right here. Are there more houses or apartments? Houses. Everybody who owns a house pays a property tax. A portion of that goes to education. Okay, that's how I get my paycheck. Okay, yay. So with that being said, you need people to buy houses. If you have a ton of apartments, not very good for the school system. Okay, all right. So thank you for property taxes, I guess. I did that at South. I did that at South. So they get paid by the school. Private schools, you pay a tuition to them, and normally it's like $500 to $600 a month. Okay, per child. Okay, and property taxes don't go to private schools. They're private institutions, so they don't get public funding. Yeah. Yep. Okay, so in general, property taxes in Georgia are relatively low, and they are. So here's the formula. Take the property value times the assessment rate minus the exemptions times the property rate. That equals your tax bill. So every like October, you get your property tax bill. And normally it's like 1,000 to about 5,000, depending on where you're at. In Suwannee, the property taxes are a lot higher. In Snellville, they're not as high. Okay. I think my property tax was like 2,000 or so. Yeah. Which is manageable. It is. Yep.
You have to pay property tax, so you have to pay money out of it
to pay myself back. Yes. Yes. So they're working on a law right now to exempt teachers from paying property taxes. Yeah. No. And so, okay, because like in reality, all right, that's $2,000 that I can keep in my pocket. You telling me that I can't keep $2,000? No. Not really.
What is like why is it not a thing? Why would they want
because the government gets a cut of those property taxes. Not the entire thing goes to education. I just work here.
Yeah.
How about
Don't worry, I'm going up to the stage.
Thank you. All right, so here's an example calculation for a home with a market value of 200,000 in Suwannee. Okay, so the property value is full market value appraised by the tax assessors. Okay, all property in Georgia is taxed at an assessment rate of 40% of its full market value. Okay. All right, so looking at this, if we did this, we're going to take 200,000. We're going to take 200,000. And we're going to multiply it by 0.4. Say again? Yes. Okay, so if we take 200,000 and we multiply it by 0.4, we're going to get 80,000. All right, we're not done yet. Now, exemptions such as homestead exemptions reduce the taxable value of your property. When you buy a house, if it's not already homesteaded, you need to do it because that drops your property tax value. If you don't, that means that your property tax is super, super high. Okay, yes. What is homestead? Let's look it up. So, an area of public land in the West granted you any U.S. citizen willing to settle on or farm the land for at least 5 years. Really, this is just if you have a house, that's where your home base is. Okay, this is what it used to be back in the day, where you were like, hey, this is where I live, but I'm also going to farm the land, so it's going to produce things for other people. Now it is just, hey, I live here. I'm not moving from here. I'm not building a business on here. I'm taking care of my family here. Here's another one. It's a house and surrounding land owned by a family. Okay. Yes. It is saying, hey, I live here. Yep. It does give you some exemptions, so that's really nice. Okay. All right. So if we homesteaded, Okay, let's say that it drops it by 2,000. I'm sorry, yeah, 2,000. Okay, so we're gonna take our 80,000 that we just got, and we are gonna subtract by that 2,000. Sorry. So that's gonna give us 78,000, right? Okay, so now step 3. So now step 3. The taxable value is then multiplied by the, I always mess this one up, millage rate per $1,000 taxable value. Gwinnett County's millage rate includes the county school tax, which is $35.36, which means that property owners pay $35.36 per $1,000 of taxable income. Okay, so remember how I said it's only a portion of it, right? Okay, so what we're going to do now on step 3 is we're going to take this 78,000 that we got and we're going to multiply it by 35.36. Okay, so again, we're going to take our 78,000. We're going to divide it by the 1,000 of taxable value and multiply it times 35.36. When we do that, we're going to get $2,758.08. So for a house that is worth $200,000, I would pay a property tax on this house of $2,758.08. Okay. So where did we get the 35.36? That's coming from here. Okay. And really this is your property tax. I misspoke. This is your property tax. Look at how much the school system gets of that. Very tiny. So look at what's included. There's school, there's county stuff. So like paying for your mayor, your other city officials, other county officials. You pay for the fire, EMS. You pay for police, code enforcement. Yes. But doesn't everybody who has ever worked a job, like if I go to Chipotle and you work at Chipotle, so that's why there's a push for these people to get a property tax break. But look at how much of a percent that is. That means that property tax would. That would. Yeah. Okay, but I get to pay my own paycheck. How's that right?
One sacrifice for the other.
Yeah. Or we could do the real right thing and I could send you back home to your parents and your parents can educate you. But then now they don't have a job. And so now the economy crashes, you know? Right. So you're telling me that we need people. All right. Calculate the amount of property taxes Justin will have to pay this year. His house has a market value of $450,000. Okay, in Gwinnett County. Okay, so calculate the amount of property taxes Justin is going to have to pay this year. If we're using this rate, okay, if we're using this rate, okay, let's say that he homesteaded it as well. Okay, so you need to do step 1, step 2, and then step 3, all on this one. Okay, so looking back at it, the first thing We're going to multiply it by 40%. The second step, we're going to subtract the homestead. Subtract the homestead, not multiply. Okay. And then we're going to divide by 1,000 and multiply by 35.36. Now, again, this varies from city and county. So depending on where that person lives, it does impact it. Okay, so here's what I did. I multiplied 450,000 by 0.4. So that was what we did in step 1. We're living in the state of Georgia. Then I subtracted the homestead. I'm assuming that he did homestead his house. Okay. Step 3, I'm trying to find the property tax. So I'm going to divide by 1,000 and multiply by 35.36. So for a $450,000 house, you're paying property taxes of $6,000. So
wait. Like, what happens if you pay $6,000 property tax, and then like, so like you're a teacher, so then like you have to like give away like let's say like $2,000, so when you add it on the drive. Let's say you're actually making $6,000.
okay.
And then as a teacher, right? And then like you have to pay the $6,000 property tax. So yeah, you're not making anything.
So remember, this is a one-time fee each year. It's not a month. It's not a month. Okay. It's manageable, but like let's say that you're living paycheck to paycheck. That's impossible, right? Okay, so you've got to make sure that, like you were saying, you got to budget, you got to plan ahead. You can't just be like, oh, it'll fix itself, you know? Because if you don't pay your property taxes, I think it's in like 2 or 3 years, they start like pulling it from your paycheck, or you go to jail, or like you can't do tax evasion. Like you can't. Like they get you at some point. Okay. All right. So Allison's annual property tax bill in 2022 was $1,524. Taxes were increased to help build a new school in her community. Her 2023 bill was $1,625. What was the percent increase? Use the formula from Unit 1. So remember from Unit 1, we have new minus the old divided by old times 100. So our new one was 1,625. We're going to subtract 1,524 divided by 1,524 and multiply by 100. Yeah. What other class are you? Somebody can say French. Okay. So when you do this, you're going to get 6.63%. I need you to notice this was in a year span of time. It went up 6%, which doesn't seem like a lot. But again, it's $101 difference. Okay. I don't know what you can do with $100. I can do a lot with $100. Yeah. So much Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, I know. My favorite thing to talk about is the private mortgage insurance. Yeah. Okay. So again, there's a difference between rent and mortgage. Rent is for an apartment. Mortgage is for a house. Okay. Remember, we like houses because we get equity. Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Do you need me to go back? Okay. My bad. There you go. All right. Go ahead and take a moment, read those insurance. So private mortgage insurance is an insurance policy that some lenders require when a borrower makes a down payment of less than 20% of the purchase price of a home. So remember, we had a down payment of 6%, right? Okay. You have to purchase insurance then if you put something less than 20%. Yeah. So again, they're trying to take your money even more. So PMI protects the lender, not the borrower, if the borrower stops making loan payments. Okay. If it compensates the lender for additional risk they take on by extending a larger loan and requiring less cash up front. PMI is usually paid monthly with little to no initial payment at closing. The borrower typically pays between 0.5% and 1% of the original loan amount each year until they build up to at least 20% of the equity in their home. You really don't notice it. It's kind of small, but it's a couple $100. PMI rates vary by down payment and credit score, but are generally cheaper than FHA rates for borrowers with good credit. in some circumstances. If I can give you any kind of advice, it would be if you are able to get a credit card right now, go and like buy like a couple of Zaxby's meals or whatever place you like to eat, and then pay it off. Okay. Every time that you pay it off, you're building up your credit. Okay. Do you do what? You can pay it off the next day. Like what I do is I put all my bills on my credit card and then I immediately pay them off with my debit card. Uh-huh.
I was like, all right, I'm gonna go a day out. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna go get some stuff on some errands, go get some food.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Maybe go put the gas in my car, right?
Right.
And then I pay for that stuff, and the next day I paid to like
Pay it off.
I paid like maybe let's say like this like the food that I ate, and then like the clothes I still have on, but I left like the gas and stuff. Will my credit still go up or no?
It'll go up a little bit. When you pay it off completely, it'll go up a lot. But you don't want to leave that credit card sitting and not doing anything. So it's kind of like this little balancing act of you want to pay majority of it off, but you don't want to pay it off completely because you still want to have credit that you're paying off. It's just showing, hey, you're a good steward of your money. That's really what you're trying to show them. Okay? That's what I do. I don't use my debit card anymore. Also, if your debit card gets hacked, it's a little bit harder to get that money back. But if your credit card gets hacked, a lot easier. Okay? Yeah. You want to pay it off as much as you possibly can. Now, I like a couple of times a year, I'll just pay off all of my credit cards, zero it out, but then I'll start using it again. You don't want to pay it off and then not use it for a while. Yes. Just pay it off and then start over. You want to show that you're building credit and show that you are actually paying those things off. Okay. Oh, okay. So that's a good question. So in the year that I was trying to like find somebody to date, that was always my question. I was like, what's your credit score? So if they have a bad credit score, normally that means that their debt to income ratio is really bad. That means that they are racking up their credit cards and they're not paying them off. Now, when you get married, whatever they have is what you have. So for instance, if I have a good credit score, let's say I have a 750 and they have a 550 credit score, my credit score drops the moment I sign the marriage certificate.
Wait, what happens if like some people like to get married without papers?
Right. So you can have a verbal agreement, but once you sign papers, right. So here's the deal though. It helps the other person out because it kind of raises it. But if you try to go get a mortgage with somebody who has a bad credit score, they look at their credit score, not your credit score. Okay. So another good idea is to keep let me pause. Let me pause. So there is something where like you can help your credit score. It takes about a year to kind of get your credit score up. So if you're gonna go marry somebody who doesn't have such a good credit score, you can bring it back. Like it's not impossible to bring up your credit score, but you have to be diligent in your funds. Like you have to be smart about it. Okay. Well, yeah, I stopped doing that after a while because I got a little depressed. Oh yeah. If I knew like the date was not going well, I was like, "What's your credit score?" Boom, gone. Bye. Like, awesome. It was awesome. Right. That's fine. We're fine. Well, because you got to think like, okay, so my background is I'm one of 4 kids. My family really kind of struggled. Like we had pinto beans and cornbread night, like almost every night for like a year. I loved it, but like as a kid, it was fine. As an adult, I was like, oh, we were. So with that being said, though, like, so finances have always been important in my world. Okay, and I'm not saying like, oh, I'm not going to date you because of this, that, and the third. No, because what happens with most divorces? What do they fight over? Somebody cheated or money, right? That's normally what happens. So I don't want to create an issue. If I've got my stuff together and you don't, now we got problems, right? Because you're gonna feel like I'm bossing you around and you're gonna be upset. It's gonna be a whole mess. Anyways, find somebody that you are compatible with on all parts of life. Cool. That's my story. Okay, let's move on to math. So, you know, I'll right. That's fine. All right. Juan is planning to purchase a $254,000 home using an FHA loan. Requires 10% down. He's got just enough money saved up for the down payment, as well as the 1.75% upfront mortgage insurance premium he's going to have to pay to get the loan. Each month for the first 11 years of this loan, Juan needs to make a monthly mortgage insurance premium payment that will annually average to 1.05% of the original loan principal. So how do we figure this one out? We are going to take that 0.0175 and we're going to multiply by how much the loan is worth. Okay, so really quick, we didn't take out $254,000. How much did we take out? Well, what was our down payment? Okay, so I'm gonna put this on the side. That means that we're gonna take 254,000, we're gonna multiply it by 0.1, and that's gonna give me 228,600. Is that math? No, that might not be math.
It didn't look like it made sense.
Oh, nope, it's okay. Take it back.
It's 25.
25,400, right? Okay, so now we're gonna take that 254,000 and subtract that 25,400. Okay, so our down payment was 10%. That's $25,400 that we put down. So how much did we borrow? There it is. We borrowed 228,600. That's how much the loan was worth. Yeah? You good? Are these numbers scaring anybody? Yeah. I think as a student, we can't fathom the like $25,000, but you can. But yeah, it's a lot. All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take that 0.0175 and we're going to multiply it by our loan amount, which was 228,600. We also are going to add that to 0.0105 because that's the 1.05% of the original loan principal for 11 years. Okay, I'm gonna give you a second. Okay, so I need you to think about this. Why did we have to do this insurance? Because we needed to pay up to 20% of the down payment, or I'm sorry, 20% down payment. If we would have done that at the beginning, then we wouldn't have had to do the mortgage insurance. Since we paid less for our down payment, now we have to do mortgage insurance. Okay. I will say this, for first time home buyers, it's a lot easier to buy a home. The next time that you buy the house though, it gets a little harder. They don't offer you as many loans. They don't give you like loan options. Also in the state of Georgia, they do a really good job of helping out EMS, police officers, and teachers. And I think nurses are actually a part of that too. With like buying homes. Like I got like some type of little discount or whatever because I'm a teacher. Yeah. Okay. Now remember the whole property tax thing. So like I basically have paid it back at this point. Okay. And this actually goes down to number 18. Sorry, I wrote that up at the top. Okay, we are almost done. Hang in there. All right, I'm going to go ahead and start reading while you're finishing writing. So for FHA loans, the most common government-backed loans for borrowers with lower credit scores and or smaller down payments, there's a 1.75% upfront mortgage insurance premium and ongoing premiums that amount to 0.40% to 1.10% of the original loan value each year. The borrower puts at least 10% down on an FHA loan. Required MIP payments will continue for 11 years. If less than 10% is put down on an FHA, the MIP payments will continue throughout the entirety of the loan term. Okay, so again, if you can make a bigger down payment, it helps you with a lot. Okay, so that's why saving up before you buy a house is a good idea. Don't just try to buy a house straight off the bat. Okay, remember, if you miss a payment on a house, you go home. Okay, all right, Marcus and Susan are buying their first home together for $240,000. Susan has a fair credit score of 660. Okay, but they don't have a lot of money saved for a down payment. They have found an FHA loan that will allow them to put down just 3.5% on the property. While the interest rate for this loan is competitive with other conventional loans, this government-backed loan requires a 1.75 upfront MIP payment and an ongoing mortgage insurance premium that will average 0.95% of the initial loan balance each year for the duration of 30-year loan. What is the required loan amount? So that's a lot of words. Yeah. Okay, so if I take 0.035 and I multiply by 240,000, what is that going to give me? Okay, so 8,400, right? Again, that is our down payment. That is our down payment. Okay, so if that is our down payment, then that means that we're going to take 240,000 and subtract 8,400. What is that going to give me? That's going to give me 231,600. So how much is the loan amount? It's 231,600. Okay, so now that you know how much the loan is worth, what I want you to do is try to figure out how much the MIP is for the 30 years. Okay, so on the previous question, it showed you how to calculate the mortgage insurance in total. Okay, so look at the previous question and see if you can figure out how much the mortgage insurance premium over 30 years is going to be. Take about 2 minutes to try that one. All right, so let's chat about it. So how much will Marcus and Susan end up paying for the mortgage insurance? So we've got to take how much the loan is. All right, I'm just gonna like scroll down. 23. Okay, so we're gonna take our loan and we're gonna multiply it times 0.0175. Okay, then we're going to add 0.095. No. 0.00. There's a 0.095. So that would be 95 per. Oh yeah, you're right. 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 You're right.
Oh,
0.0095. I'm going home. It's fine. All right. Then we're gonna multiply by how much our loan is, and then multiply by 30. Okay. All right. When we do that, we're gonna go into Desmos. We're gonna type all that down. 231,600 times 0.0175. What do you want? Is the what? MIP, yes. That's how much you have to pay. Well, that's how much you have to pay up front. Yes. Okay. Now look at it this way. I got 70,059. That's what I got for my answer. If I would have just taken the initial loan and multiplied by 20%, I would have paid 46,000 instead of that 70,000. But remember, we've got interest on top of it. Okay. Good. Okay. So what I did was in your Google Classroom, if you go to today, I gave you some practice on mortgage payment. So what you're going to do is you're going to open this and then you're going to make a copy of it so that you can see everything. I gave you some practice videos. If you weren't here yesterday, you can learn it then. But this is monthly payment for a house. Okay. So there are some questions down here that I want you to answer. You can either answer it on a Google Doc or you can answer it on a piece of paper. Okay, so I'm gonna give you about 30-ish minutes to be working on this. Okay? Everybody good? Questions? Okay.